what's up? We're back with another session of the Sisters in Therapy podcast, where we have much needed conversations about all things mental health, because everything relates to mental health. The only difference this time is we got a guest. We're going to let him introduce himself.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? First of all, thank you, ladies, for letting me come on to the podcast. It's a blessing and an honor. The name's Donald Stutson, born and raised Oklahoma City, east side of Oklahoma City, proud native of the east side. Graduate of Oklahoma State University, BS, MS, Electrical Engineering, down here in Houston for about 12 years. And when I'm not doing the engineering thing, I'm a strength conditioning coach.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yes. So I met D-Stud because you trained me on my birthday in 2022.
Yes.
And this is how, and when I came to you, I was talking about safety and emotional safety and how did I end up at your gym. And I was like, I didn't feel emotionally safe at my last gym. And I'm like, but most men don't really know what that is. He's like, oh, I know what that means.
Google works.
And she sure came back and told me. I was so surprised.
But then I stalked his Instagram and I'm like, oh, okay, he know what he's talking about. He really is about this life. So we're going to have a much needed conversation amongst Black folks about safety and love. And I thought that you would be intellectually fit to have this conversation with us.
Like that.
Thank you very much.
That is a compliment from me to you.
Yes. Fit in all
So
categories.
we always start with some definitions. So emotional safety is really a complicated definition, but I'm gonna say what Google has, and then we'll just chime in from there.
Okay.
It's the experience of feeling safe enough to express your emotions, establishing trust, to be open and vulnerable. That's one definition. And then another definition is feeling of being accepted and embraced for who you truly are and what you feel and need. So I feel like that's not really saying a lot. It's saying a lot, but I feel like it needs to be broken down a little bit. What you think about the definition?
I thought it fit perfectly because whenever I think about even emotional safety for myself, the first thing that came up for me was, is it safe for me to be fully, authentically who I am?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or is there a box?
Okay.
Is there this standard expectation, societal expectation that I should be falling under? Or are you saying,
Okay.
no, I can meet you where you're at, however you show up?
Okay. What about you? How would you?
You know what? It's funny we try to put two words together and say, "Oh, that's it." But the way I would break it down really is just a space that is almost boundless in nature, where you can just be who you are, right? Where there are no consequences to expressing who you are emotionally. Where whether you're having a good day, bad day, it's not, well, do I have to manage someone else's emotions in order to express my emotions? Can I just let it go and let the pieces fall where they may?
Right.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you use there are no consequences.
I love that you said
that's a
that.
big word, because consequences could be like, okay, are they gonna roll their eyes each time I'm like ready to talk about something? So and I think the last part of that other definition, it said embracing oneself. That's a big part for me, because embracing me means you allow all parts of me to exist in that space,
Okay.
So yeah.
I don't dislike the definition. I just feel like as a Black woman, I'm like, how does emotional safety play in people seeing me? And what that means to be a Black woman and navigating that experience.
Right.
So what does it mean for us as Black people to see each other? Do we need emotional safety to see each other?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I definitely think so. I think we have to hold space for one another to do the. Being Black is such an amazing experience, right?
It is.
It can be tough,
Oh,
but it's
sure.
fun.
It's fun.
Right? But and so there's some things that just go without being said. During the time of when I had the gym and stuff like that, 98% of my clients were African American women, and so the sisters knew they could show up, working out in bonnets and things, and they could do that. We even had cocoa butter in the bathroom, and so
That is
it was,
emotional safety, right?
it's a space to know, like, okay, when you walk in there, you're like, no, you don't have to be, dressed like a fitness influencer to work out. You can get it in how you going, because I know look like that, that press,
And it
that
was
rap
hot in your gym.
cost and stuff, and it's hot in there too. So I don't look, because I'm not paying for any hair, nails, anything like that. So I'm like, hey, you do what you need to do. So I just think that when we can just be who we are with, even in a public setting, I think that's great, because I think sometimes we have to wear some type of mask or some type of that we have to. There's some type of construct we have to have in order to engage with the rest of society.
Yeah, I agree to that. You said, do we need emotional safety? What was the
In
question?
order for us to see each other? I wonder if we know. I wonder if we know what it means to see each other. Because we're sitting here having a logical conversation and nobody is arguing and fighting, but so many other people are sitting down having the same conversation and they're not, it's not a balanced conversation. So what we're trying to add to this is a balanced perspective and a productive kind of conversation about like what does it mean for a black man to see a black woman and a black woman to see a black man.
Right.
So as a black woman, what does it mean for you to be seen?
All of those things that you just
All
listed,
things?
being able to be seen. I know a lot of times like we appreciate people in their strength, but like appreciate me in my softness, because that's
Okay.
where I feel most at home. My nervous system
Is
is
intact.
settled. You're not requiring me to be something that's literally
Okay.
not me. That is what safety is
Okay.
for me.
The security.
Yes.
Okay.
I like that you hit on the part about the mask because I think that's very specific to the black community and I think like you said, Mercedes, there's a piece of the conversation that we're not having is because I don't know that we're being intentional with even recognizing how much we have to mask whenever we go into all these different places.
Who is we? Black
Yes.
women? Black women?
And men.
And men?
Like, are you
Right.
being aware that in all these other settings you're having
Yeah.
to put on a mask? And so
Yes.
at home, being intentional with being able to take that mask off.
Right. Okay.
Are we aware? Are we doing that?
I don't know if we are aware. I don't. So I guess what I'll say is I don't believe that black women are seen in most spaces. I believe that we are watched. And there is a
Absolutely.
big
Absolutely.
difference. I feel like we're not seen, we're watched. So we're watched to make sure we're not too loud, not too confident, not too cute, not too fat, not too skinny, and now not too athletic. You know, so I feel like we're watched, but we're not really seen. Not by most people, but I feel like there are some brothers who do see us. And so I had a conversation with another black man and he was like, well, I'm confused. Like, help me understand. Like, what does it mean to see you then? And like, I'm like, so I thought about Audre Lorde. And then I was like, for me to be seen as a black woman is you acknowledge the historical plight of black womanhood and the double oppression as a result of my race and my gender. So you have to see why I'm showing up and demanding accountability for you
Right.
to, one, respect my voice and my opinion and what I bring to this space.
Right.
Which is why I picked you for this episode, because when I brought what I brought to you and brought it up, you never were like, oh, like nobody hitting you upside your head. What you mean safety? You literally took the time to hold the space and have a
Right.
conversation with me.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's what black women need to be seen.
Oh, absolutely. I think there was a point that you said that I wanted to come back to, but I think because what you said earlier, I think we have to realize as far as like having conversations like this is we're not in competition with
Not at
each
all.
other.
Right.
My experience is mine, yours is yours.
Yes, there's no oppression Olympics.
Can we stop?
Oppression
Stephen A.
Olympics.
There's no
Yes,
oppression
that-
Olympics,
that-
Stephen
that-
A.
Look, that's a whole other podcast in itself.
Yeah.
For
No,
sure.
It really is.
Yes.
For
Because
sure.
if the first thing out of your mouth is, well, what about the experience of a...
Yeah.
When did we start competing?
Yeah. I don't know when they.
Well,
they
according to
competition.
research, it's been a thing.
I mean, I'd imagine so.
But so what for you as a black man, what does it mean for us to see you as a black man?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I think for black men to be seen, and this is in my opinion, I think when the sisters lead with that softness, right? That space of vulnerability, like, hey, you can say I'm not okay. You can express that, hey, maybe you don't have it all figured out. Maybe you are succumb to the pressures of what it is to be a black man in America, to be a provider, to be a leader, to have to go do those things that society says that you have to go do, and then knowing that it's a little bit more difficult just because once again race always plays a factor. So I think to be seen is just to create a type of space and energy where it's like you can take your armor off, like sit it aside, like you don't have to go to bed in your armor, wake up in your armor, go out in the world in your armor, and come back home in your. At some point, it's gotta be heavy. It's gotta weigh you down.
Right.
You have to take that off, sit it aside, and just sit in a space where you can be poured into.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, does it take someone to say, you don't have to, blah, 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 or do you recognize it yourself? Or does it take somebody to say it to recognize it's happening?
Well, at least for me, I recognize it, but a lot. I think a lot of men in general, struggle with the idea of, is it okay? Because there's this recurring theme of one time I tried it and it
Yep.
just wasn't
Yeah.
someone that actually held space for me, and they held it against me. They used it as a type of weaponry. I
Yeah.
was attacked for it, and then all of a sudden, no more for the rest, right? Because men, when it comes to being wrong, like we do not take it well. We do not take it easy. Like, now, if Waiting to Exhale was made by was for men cast, man, it would have been a nuclear war, right? It would have been no, we're not burning no clothes in the car. We just gonna start a nuclear war. So I think that it takes a lot, work to say, hey, look, you know what? When I go out into the world, it's hard. But when I come home, like, I don't want it to be hard. But sometimes I think we can intentionally make it hard because we think that since we spend all day on the battlefield combating, just in our corporate, lifestyles or whatever we do for work, that we come home that you think there's another war because you're just, it's like PTSD of sorts.
100%.
So, yeah.
Because your nervous system is still
Yes.
out in the world when you come home. You haven't, like you said, we haven't taken the armor off.
Correct.
So you come home and
I
some
think-
people punch down whenever they come home because
Oh,
they
yeah,
have to
because they're
succumb to
so
all of these
frustrated.
things
Yeah.
Right.
when they're at work.
I wonder too if this is sort of correlates with that conversation between Nikki Giovanni and
Oh, absolutely.
James
where
Baldwin?
Yes,
yeah,
where she
lie
said,
to me.
lie to me.
Yeah,
like
that-
Yes.
you were able to be this other person. They get the best air quotes
Yes.
version of you, but you come home, I get the worst of you.
Yeah.
Why can't
But
you
you
lie
love
to
me.
me?
Because
But you love me.
because being outside of the home was so mentally taxing that
Yeah.
I don't have nothing left to give you at home but the meanness.
Right.
But that means we have to acknowledge fully that something has happened to us
Right.
as Black people collectively, and
Yeah.
that every system in place was literally put in place to limit our potential so we can thrive and our capacity to love and hold space for each other. I think we don't come back to the root of why we're being mean to each other because these things are put in place to increase our intolerance of each other, and it's doing a good job of it. I think we don't hold space for each other. What do
No.
y'all think some barriers to us collectively as Black people? And I'm not talking about romantic relationships specifically, just in general, Black men, Black women. What are some barriers to us kind of feeling safe in love with each other?
Social media.
Okay,
Right. It's because it's a there's a lot I believe that flows behind the scene when it comes to social media in terms of what platforms we use.
Okay.
I don't think it is seen as, to me, I just see it as a huge gender war. But it seems that social media platforms will push that more out for you to see, and then it pulls you in. It's just like a vacuum. But they're more concerned with, can you interact with the content, right? Because the more that you interact with the content, which means you're on their platform more, which means they can run ads to you, they make more money, they do things like that. So it's really like to draw you into the matrix of sorts. And so I think social media, because there is no structure to it in terms of how you even disseminate information. I mean, you can get on and just make up whatever you want. And,
I mean, that's what we're doing
there's
right
really
now.
no fact checking, right? And
Right.
so I think with that, people everyone loves to be a keyboard thug, right? Everyone loves to say the things they want to say, but they would never run up on those people and say it like in person.
Right.
And I think that allows people to be a little bit on the cynical side of things, the malicious side of things, because they think maliciousness is fun because they themselves are trying to get as many likes and get their platforms up and get
Right.
those things going, right? And so they're like, well, if I say something nice, it's not going to get anything, but I know if I go here and I say something negative, it's just going to blow up like
sure.
ridiculous. I remember this. The I am 6'7" guy that does the sensational. He
I know what you're talking about.
See, look, so we gonna say that
where
way
he
you looked
at now?
at.
He disappeared.
Now he's back in on whatnot.
I
But
don't even see him anymore.
but there was something a lady had posted one of the videos where she was like, hey, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and when it comes to whatever income she draws, that she her husband takes care of the finances and she gets like a little allowance, and I made something to the a comment to the effect of being a stay-at-home mom is like the hardest job in the world. And I mean, that thing is still rolling like 5,000. Like, people just went crazy. Like, no, it's not. I work in construction. I do this. I'm like, dude, you shovel dirt all day. I promise you keep changing those diapers and you keep trying to, get bottles and you keep trying to, cook, clean, and even take care of yourself. I think it's difficult, but people love that. But if, it's almost like people want to argue down,
Yes.
what someone else's opinion. It's just like, dude, it's okay that we have a difference of
Right.
opinion.
Yes.
But you're right about the social media part for sure. But Kevin Samuels, to name drop him, that's what he did with social media,
Yes.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's when a lot of content started rolling out that really started highlighting kind of, I guess, the gender conflict between black men and black women.
Yeah.
But it didn't really start with Kevin Samuels, because I've done research and like Googled. This is actually, there's people talking about this in 84, 83, in the 70s. So there's been like this wedge between black men and black women. Today, I think a big barrier is the hip hop, not hip hop, the rap music. Can't blame hip hop, but the rap music. And so I was reading, I think, an article on CNN or somebody, and they were saying like subconsciously through rap music, black women are constantly hearing the message that we don't want you, or degrading you, or you're just a sexual piece of meat or something. I'm like, dang, that's crazy to me that all of these non-black people are sitting back studying how we are treating each other. I'm like, I don't like that. It's like, the family business is just on display for everybody to see on social media, because we talk bad to each other on social media.
It's terrible.
We do.
It's
horrible.
horrible.
And I think to both of your points, I think the main two barriers is we're not moving in with integrity anymore, and as a result of it, we're not participating with love.
Facts.
With each other. We're not talking to each other in a nice way. We're talking at each other. We're saying rude things on social media. So, and I think, I don't know what happened first. Integrity was lost and love was lost. I don't know what the order was, but I think those have been the two barriers.
I think we do know what the order is. I think that for so long, black women suppressed their voices, and then we were just going along with things, and so it didn't look like there was an issue. And then black women started not suppressing their voices, so then it started being, okay, black women are difficult now. Right. So I don't know if black women needs were ever being met, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was saying I don't know if we lost integrity and then love first, or love and then integrity went down the window. I don't know.
I just think that black women started saying, okay, this is hard. I can't just stay at home and do all this cooking and cleaning. Then now I got to go out and get a job now and also do this. So, you know, I'm very tired. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think black women was like, okay, I would like to take the cape off. Because to be fair, I feel like black women, especially single black mothers, get criticized for being a superwoman, but then they'll get criticized for not taking care of their kids.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? Because I'm not saying why dad is not in the house. I'm just saying he's not here. So therefore, I have to put on my big girl pants and I got to go out there and get it.
But then you a man and you're masculine and you're trying to be too independent. And then she's like, oh, but I actually don't have a choice.
I don't have a choice.
Correct. Correct. I agree.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, and I'm not blaming like a man for that. I'm just saying, just see how she got to be like that. It ain't because I'm guarantee you, black women don't want to get up every day and go pay their bills by themselves.
I mean,
I don't think they want to do that.
Yeah. But when we talk about barriers, I think that's one of the main ones is that, again, are we really trying to see one another, or are we just wanting to be seen? Are we wanting to be validated? I think we all struggle independently and we're just waiting for somebody to validate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And until somebody does that, it's like we can't open ourselves up to listen or see other people.
I want both to be seen, black men
Absolutely.
and black
But
women.
we have to. We both have to be on the same page with that.
And it's more like we're chapters apart, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we're in a different book on a different bookshelf in a different library,
different planet,
you know, in a different planet, in a different galaxy. You know, it's crazy, but finding that balance, I don't know. It's so hard because you know it's easy for people to get together in very intimate spaces, as you know, as a collective, and to find some kind of resolution. But then how do you go spread the gospel of that, right? You know, like how do you have this sit down meeting like, hey, look, we live in a modern era, right? There's a very good chance that your grandmother, maybe even some of your moms, depending on your age, what you thought you saw was love was really surviving.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
You know, this was not. I mean, you know, when you think about it, I think it wasn't until the 1970s that women got bank accounts.
73.
You know, and so if you start thinking, you know, anything before that, you know, all your money had to go through one place and stuff like that. And so just because you saw it, everything, you know, it's kind of like what they say, you know, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear type things. And so, but then also those conversations did get passed on from those older generations. Like, hey, look, I was with your grandfather because, look, I did not have the right to work. I couldn't go get an education like you and go make something and build my own life. I had to depend on someone like really by force of the structure of the system in order to do that. And so I think people need to, you know, realize that, hey, as we're modernizing relationships and that dynamic is to have the conversations of what that looks like. There's not this is what modern is. It's not a defined definition. It's this is my experience. This is my desires, and can our experience and desires, you know, somehow gel together, and then we can go. But if we are opposing, and there's tons of friction because you know you want, you know, 2 square meals cooked a day and stuff like that. But this girl out here, you know, she's been working 8 hours and you
Just like you.
and just like you.
Exactly.
Now you might have to go to Chick-fil-A a couple times because there's got to be a balance. Just because you saw your grandmother and mom do it does not mean that they necessarily when they did it because that was just out of survival, and that's all.
On top of that, they were telling the daughters and the granddaughters on the side, be independent, please.
Yes.
I was about to say,
Yes.
and that's the
The
thing.
grandsons don't know that, but the granddaughters
Absolutely.
are being
That's what I'm
told,
saying.
hey,
I think
Yeah.
the
get your
women
own
were
shit.
having the
Yeah.
conversations. You
Yeah.
talk about the conversations not being had, but
Yeah.
I was just reading the other day. They were saying they were telling the girls
Yeah.
like,
On the side.
Yes,
"This
on
is
the
survival.
side.
Like you need
Yeah.
to make sure that you good,
Yeah.
make sure that you
Right.
straight, make sure that
Yes.
you
No,
got
I
the
meant
stuff
that from the
together."
perspective
No,
of
I hear
telling the
you.
boys, right?
Yes.
Because
Right.
I grew up, my mom raised my sisters and I, and she definitely told them, hey, look, you need to get out, you need to get your education, you need to be able to hold your own, whether it's from being able to pay for your own hair, makeup, nails, your life, you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet without anyone else. But I think the conversations that should have been passed on to lots of sons who eventually became future fathers and stuff like that was not one of, hey, look, this is where we are guiding the women towards, which is the equalization in society, which is also the ability to gain access to the same education, to the same corporate jobs, closing that wage gap to like 0%,
Right.
and stuff like that. And I think a conversation got had with the ladies more than the guys, and I think the guys built up a little frustration because they're like, well, grandma, I just saw you make grandpa breakfast and dinner and lunch and all
Exactly.
that, but then you told mom to go to Princeton and go get a PhD or something like that, and then it's like, well, it's a state of confusion. So I think people should just start reaching back if they have their elders, start asking some of those questions like, grandma, like give me the good, the bad, and the ugly.
No, for
like,
sure.
if you're blessed to have your elders, go have those
Yeah,
conversations. You can get a better understanding of what you thought you saw.
Right. And I think you
Exactly.
just spoke to what, as a person who worked with relationships a lot with different races, but just reading different research about dating today, and they're basically saying for so long men had to do the bare minimum in order to even have a woman, but now the bare minimum doesn't cut it anymore because, like you said, women don't necessarily need you to survive anymore. You can survive on your own. And I don't even want it to be about surviving, but just like, yeah, I think men are not wanting to change as much as women have changed in regards to
absolutely.
having access to human rights.
Right.
Essentially,
Right.
Yes.
essentially. But you said something. You said, "How do we spread this gospel?" So, reading our current book club read Ride or Die. Can't think of her name right now, the author. But in this book, she speaks about how the church and the rap music are two very high pivotal places where Black people seek messages. And she's not lying. We're gonna
Yes.
listen to a preacher and we're gonna listen to a rapper.
Yeah.
And she said, okay. And she said in this book something along the lines. It's in my notes, but how the church's best interests and the rap music have kind of joined together to not have Black women's interests at the forefront of anything because you're just told to kind of go along with things. And she was just saying the church and hip hop got a divorce from this same old message, and we got to really spread a new message because a certain preacher with a really huge platform, not going to say his
I
name,
was.
because he took upon himself to have a sermon about how Black women are being men.
Yes.
For the same reason we just described as, no, sir, she just got to take care of her kids. Or you climb in corporate America, but you really need to be focused on basically being in the kitchen bare feet. Like, what kind of... So he's spreading it, and he's a preacher.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, so we're lost if the preacher is not going to change his message.
I think it's well, I'm a preacher's kid, so and no, don't worry. But I think what happens is what no, don't worry. I'm not going to make any crazy turns. But I think you like kick me out.
Right
Throw me
now.
out. Just throw me right out. No, I think what happens is, especially if we're moving under the guise that we're referencing specifically Christianity, is that when we look at the Bible, we have to realize that it is by faith you believe that it is the word of God, but in that is intertwined a social structure of a particular group of people, the Israelites. I mean, this is what we take all the way up into what is the New Testament, and then if you believe in the Messiah, then go for it. But I think what happens is when you have those old school laws that was in society, of Jewish culture, it's easy to say, well, we can just take that as the absolute. It's like, well, but everybody's a Gentile if you're not Jewish, right? Within this Christian faith thing, and so I look at it from the perspective of every culture has their own uniqueness in terms of how they should structure things. But I think a lot of people like to use scripture and the culture within scripture as a type of controlling mechanism to say, well, if you really believe in God, then you're going to say that by what you read, this is the absolute and this is how it's going to do. Everyone loves that wives be submissive to your husband. They love that scripture, but
Yeah.
I'm like, but you don't understand what submission what comes with that, I actually was in college and should have been studying, but I actually turned around and was reading a book of like Jewish customs. And if dudes really started looking at what was required in order to get that submission, in order to even get some bedroom action, like a lot of it was tied to your ability to create a space to where your wife could thrive into that. So it wasn't like, oh, this was barefoot and kind of like a slave-like thing. Like you had to go hustle. Like your hustle affected the kind of woman you could actually have access to. Like you couldn't just pull up, it's because you worked at Wendy's.
There were
and you trying to go get like the high priest's daughter, like you need to come with a couple of goats and some chickens and whatever they have for currency. So I think
whatever they have for
some
currency
goats
is
and
crazy.
chickens. I got the real Chick-fil-A. So the but so I think with
that's
that,
a good
people
point.
like to use that. Yeah.
That's a good point. Specifically in our culture, though, in this particular book that I'm reading, she was saying not like we don't want to follow the word of God, but just because somebody is a man of God, whatever they say goes.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was saying in the black community, you listen to the man of God. Even when the man of God is saying something that is quite not right, you just listen to him because he is the man of God. And she was saying like this is a place where black men had power. In the church, didn't have power outside in the rest of the world. They have power in the church when they are in the pulpit. Then they have power in their home. So you listen to the men because this is a man of God and they have the power. And but I don't even think that it should be about power. It really should be about leading. Like at some point, I feel like masculinity became less about leading. In my opinion, like what happened? Because everybody's talking about masculinity and femininity, but masculinity was also you leading.
Yeah.
And we got away from that as well. Not you telling me what to do because you're a man.
Yeah, I think people just try to replace that with whatever they don't. Words mean things, and I think people are just trying to change the term and apply it to something else.
It seems like people are trying to get lazy.
Yes, but I also kind of like similar to what we talked about before. I think there's an obsession with being the, head honcho. I think people want to be in power, and I think women are the easy target for that.
Yes.
That next in line to get powered over, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Which doesn't create a space for emotional safety when anybody is seeking power in any dynamic.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I think also if we could turn just a little bit, I think that it's important for men to know also that their existence based off the past should also be challenged too. Patriarchy should be challenged when it comes to manhood too, because no, you should not have to go out all day and work and be financially responsible for everything. There has to be balance.
Right.
So I think everybody really got to challenge their mindset on gender roles and the beliefs about how we should be in relationships. Because I don't think that a man should have to be solely responsible for everything financially. I think it's too much pressure.
Right.
Or not have emotions because they're human.
Yes, that too.
That makes me think, because you said something earlier on, and so I really wanted to ask you, because you said you need to be able to come home and just lay everything out with no consequences and know that it can be handled. But you said some men aren't able to recover whenever it's not handled well.
Right.
What advice would you have to men who have had
That's
this
a good question,
experience
T.
a time or two?
Oh, that's a good question. One, if it's happened a time or two, you're the common denominator because you chose to be with that person for number one. So you maybe have to recognize that there's some type of pattern that you're being attracted to that does not allow you to have the space of what you want. And maybe it's rooted in something in your past. You're like, it just feels comfortable, even though it's not necessarily a good thing. A lot of humans, we love comfort. We love familiarity.
Right.
And so sometimes a place of chaos or a place of where there is no place of vulnerability is something you just learn to deal with, and you never really challenge the idea of it. But I would say, I remember when I was talking with my therapist, we were talking about vulnerability, and I was just like, what? I was like, no, what are you talking about, vulnerability? I was like, that's like someone could destroy you if you give them all that information, And I was just like, so how do you actually begin this process? And he was like, Donald, I know you're an engineer and stuff like that, but there's no equation or formula. He was like, you're just going to have to start bit by bit. He was like, I can't tell you the magnitude of what to share in order to gain that, but over time, you just learn to open up more and more and more. So you may not want to throw the craziest skeleton out of your closet out because you'd be like, what's going on? But however, it's like, okay, if you love this person, you can see yourself being with this person, or you're with this person, I think bit by bit, you have to open up, but then also express what it is you're trying to do even before, because someone may feel blindsided by this. They're like, all of a sudden, why are you talking about, when your pet cat died in 3rd grade, now you over here crying, and stuff like that. And you might want to say, hey, look, babe, I want to work on being more vulnerable.
Yeah.
I want to work on being more open. So, I may have to schedule out some time or whatever to sit down and just, just have those moments. It's not going to be perfect. I'm not always going to get it right. But the goal is that over time, when you look back, you see nothing but a progress. You see the progress in increase. And I think when that begins to happen and dudes just step out, just a little bit of faith, I think they can get some things accomplished.
I wonder too, because a lot of times from what I've seen, men say like there are no safe spaces for men.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a very popular topic.
It's a very popular topic.
What would you say to that?
You know what? I think we like to say that as a means to justify not doing the work, right? Because this is work,
they gonna
right?
say they only picked him because he
okay.
did
That's okay. Hey,
They gonna
hey,
say we picked you just because you agree with us.
hey,
Because I
hey,
agree
that's
with
facts,
everything
though.
you just said.
Hey, you guys, y'all know where to find me. You see me in public, just say it. You know,
I agree.
Don't you
You know,
worry.
don't
I
worry. You
agree
can run
with
up
that.
on me, man. You know,
said
you
run up
might
on me.
run up on me. You might
Don't
let
do
it
it.
back.
That was a
You know?
mic drop.
But you have to, because it's easier to say, it's easy to make excuses versus do the work because the work is always hard. That's why it's called
Of
work,
course.
right?
Always.
It's easy to say, man, you know what, man, I'm not gonna eat this grilled chicken, man. I'm gonna keep this back big all summer, and I'm gonna just go get this, Chick-fil-A or something. But no, I think with that, it's just a matter of practicing vulnerability and intimacy, right? Like I think I always say that men really lack intimacy amongst one another, and when we hear that word, we instantaneously think of it in a sexual connotation.
Yes.
If it's like let's be intimate, I'm like, dude, I'm not putting on no Key Sweat album for you, man.
Right.
Like that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
It is when I ask you how you're doing. It's more than just, man, I'm straight, I'm good. No.
Right.
How are you? It's okay to say, man, look, man, I just got laid off my job, man. Me and my girl going through it. Like I'm just dealing with a lot of stress because I don't know how I'm going to jump from one leap path to the next. It's okay to say those things, right? It can't be just every time you get with the fellas. That's not intimate just because y'all out eating, chicken wing baskets and hookah lounges, right? And playing 2K all day. It is, are you having the conversations? Are you able to say, man, I love you, right? And not be thinking, oh my God, he's in love with me. Like, no, I didn't say I'm in love with you. I love you, So I think just if men could get more intimate with one another, I think that if we can get over that mountain, then being intimate with the women around us and the other spaces we're in is going to be a lot easier. But I think just speak up. I mean, because if the people that are around you, they call themselves your tribe. If you open up and some volatile or negative reaction occurs or something of the sort, that's a pretty good indicator that maybe that person doesn't have your best interest at heart. Because if you're part of my crew, like I have your best interest like at heart. Like I only want the best for you, right? I don't want to go, man, that's a little too deep. Like, no, man, you going through something. Like, look, let's talk about it.
For sure. I have a question. I want to know what does it mean for a black man to be an ally to a black woman, like in your perspective?
To be an ally is, allyship is really back to about being seen, right? It's right back to seeing, and so, but not observing, right? It's to take your experience, because chances are you grew up with several black women in your life.
Yes.
You leverage that knowledge to the women that are outside of the nucleus that is your family, and I think allyship is really understanding it. It is actually just shutting up, listen, and ask enough questions to gain the clarification that you need in order to hear what is actually being processed. And back to that competitive thing we're talking about, that gender war. It's like, look, if sisters are telling you like, hey, they're saying I can't wear a certain hairstyle, it doesn't need to be met with, well, I wear a fade to work. Like, we're not talking about whether you wearing a fade or some dreads to work. We're talking about that these corporations are saying you cannot be authentically who you are, and that somehow they're defining your value based on your appearance versus the quality of work you can bring to whatever organization and stuff like that. So I think with allyship really means to genuinely and authentically like listen and try your damnedest to connect to what black women are enduring, right? Because I guarantee you that all that keyboard thuggery that people like to have, you try to say that around your mom or your grandmother, your aunts or sisters, right? Because remember, you cannot separate the black women in your life from the black women, in your family from the black women of the world, right? They're all in the same pool. Like whatever you think is being experienced on the outside, the women in your family have experienced something.
Absolutely.
It's not like all of a sudden they're impervious to the problems of the world because they're related to you.
Gotcha.
They go through the same thing.
Right.
Okay.
You know?
I think we're seeing. I'm gonna just speak a little bit about the WNBA, but I feel like we're seeing it right now with the WNBA.
Oh,
What's
boy.
is it Ryan Clark with the Pivot podcast?
Yes.
He
yes.
did a really beautiful job
like
of
him.
breaking
Yeah, he's cool.
down. Oh
like
my
him.
God,
I
he
really
broke
like
down like I said. This is allyship. I know he didn't. I don't think he name dropped Stephen A. But I know he's talking about the way Stephen A. and LeBron Nim handled themselves in interviews when asked about this. And he like, I think that we should just listen to the women who've been here talking about the W. We should just listen to them. Like, why y'all not understanding that this is their sport and we're coming in telling them
What to
that
do.
they're hating? And Kendrick Perkins had a good point. He said, knowing the language that can trigger women, when Charles Barkley said these women are hating on Caitlin Clark, he like, you can't say that. Like, that's
Right.
actually not what's going on.
That's
like,
not what's happening.
That's
that's
literally
not
not
what's
what's
happening. So I
happening.
feel like Stephen A. centered himself by saying, what about the black man? I'm like, that is not what Monica McNutt was talking about.
No.
She was talking about the experience of these women, and y'all don't want to call attention to their race being a factor to why they're going through what
Right.
they're going through.
Exactly. And
In
to
the
your
W.
point, shut up
And listen.
and listen.
Right. You know, I think with the WNBA, what is happening is, I think all of the individuals that are now tuning into the sport,
Just now tuning
just
in.
now, the just now tuning into the sport, they don't understand how dynamic of a league that the WNBA may be one of the most dynamic leagues in the world, simply because there's so many layers upon layers of of the WNBA construct. When you think about the NBA, you know, an NBA players, they're basically they're cookie cutter, right? Like they, you know,
everybody's
I'm going to make the assumption that at least some 99.9% of them are heterosexual males. They didn't have to play a full 4 years in college. They earn millions upon millions of dollars, right? And so once again, back to that wage gap and things of that sort. And I think what's happening is people want to take the banter and the rhetoric of male sports and then try to impose them within female sports, and those you just can't do
You
that,
can't
right?
do it.
You first need to observe what is going on, because I tell you, those ladies work like just as hard, if not harder, than their male counterparts in the NBA. And so I think the whole narrative of, you know, everyone's hating on Caitlin Clark or something of that sort, that's not what's going on. I think what the narrative is that everyone's trying to say that Caitlin Clark magically has made the WNBA what it is. I'm like, no, she stands on the shoulders of Cheryl Swoops and Tina Thompson, Dawn Staley,
Right.
all those types of, you know, characters.
Rebecca Lobo.
And Rebecca Lobo, you know, New York Liberty, Rebecca, you say, oh, that was my girl. You know, but I think it's like, no, that entire draft class is reshaping
Correct.
the WNBA.
Agreed.
And we're
Correct.
talking about Cardozo, we're talking about Angel Reese, we're talking about Rikia Jackson, you know,
And Cameron Brink.
you know,
That's
and
my girl.
Cameron Brink,
And
yeah.
Aaliyah Edwards. And
Hey.
Alyssa Peely.
You know, like everyone, like Peely, hey, that girl nice with the three.
She's nice with the three.
She's nice with the three. And so it's like we're literally watching them transition from their collegiate years into the professional, like seamlessly.
Right.
It's not like we're
It's a special rookie class. We can say
they're
that.
Very special.
Very
I mean, they're
special
making
rookie
the same
class.
plays that we're seeing in college. It's not like all of a sudden, you know, Angel Reese is stepping out there and like, no, she looks just like she's back at LSU balling. You know,
Right.
Caitlin Clark is still stepping across half court and pulling
Right.
up those Steph Curry like threes. It's like all we did was watch them put on different uniforms.
Right.
And they're still playing with the same heart and intensity. And so for them to be rookies playing with, you know, they're playing with the best of the
Exactly.
best,
The best.
right? I mean, they're out there hanging with them like this
They
is
are.
just another day. Like they're a special class.
I think it's a
They're
very special class.
special class.
But I know you're a fan of the W. That's also another reason why I picked you, because I know you watch women's sports.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite rookie out of this class?
And rookie, I love Angel, right? Because I just love her. Like, she don't back down from nothing, right? Like,
Nothing.
she is not afraid to say what she want to say to social media. She's going to be who she is. Like, it's back to that authenticity, right? Like, you know, she's got, you know, the tons of NIL deals and stuff. And I love it because she's never, you know, it's like they say a zebra never changes its stripes. And I believe, you know, she's, you know, one of those types of individuals. Like, she plays with so much, you know, energy. She plays with so much passion. You know, she's almost like she's almost like the FloJo of the WNBA. You know, she's got that diva thing, but don't let that fool you, right? When that woman steps on the court, like, you've got a monster on your hands out there, you know? And so it's just amazing to see how she's, you know, transitioning that, and she's standing up for, you know, herself. She's advocating for the entire league. You know, it's not just, well, look at me, but I love how she also says, I'm special too.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
she says, and when you look back over this time, I will change this league. And that says a lot, right? You know, because that is speaking in a LeBron James-esque, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. Like when you say as a rookie, hey, when you look back over it, I will change this game. That's confidence. But I believe we will be talking about that woman for decades to come. Yeah.
Okay. I would like to see her maybe get in the gym with like Tim Duncan, like Aaliyah Boston did. I think if she get in the gym with Tim Duncan, she'll be a very, 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 very special player. But I'm gonna stop talking about basketball. But I really think she should.
Yeah,
I think she should.
Tim Duncan was nice.
Yes.
Like Tim Duncan is all at least top 3 big man in the NBA across all time. So that's a good person to work with.
Okay, so I'm going to switch the topic a little bit to June being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So this was coined in like 1992, but everybody is talking about it this year specifically. And so the reason why men have to have their own month to highlight mental health awareness is because this month is highlighted specifically due to stats reporting that men are less likely than women to seek help for depression, substance abuse, or other stressors, according to Mental Health America. So I jumped a little bit, but basically they're saying women are saying that they're depressed, men are not. So you spoke to it a little bit, but what are your thoughts on this? Men not opening up about maybe feeling depressed or struggling with addiction or just stress management in general?
You know what? I think a lot of it has, you know, speaking as a man, I think there's this way we're raised, not only by just the men that raise us, but then what you just see on TV and in the construct of society is that a man is supposed to have it all figured out, right? He's supposed to get himself in and out of his own problems.
That's a lot of pressure.
And he doesn't need any help. He's supposed to be a lone wolf. He's supposed to, you know, a lone soldier out there on the battlefield. And I think when you get conditioned to, you know, a man not supposed to cry. Man's supposed to solve his own problem. Man's supposed to handle up to his own responsibility. But what does handle up to your own responsibility mean? That's a lot, and things of that sort. And I think when you get told that over and over, and then combined with the idea that your peers also defining or critiquing your manhood based on how you move and things like that, well, then you don't want to deal with those. So it's almost like it's an avalanche effect of what's going on and things of that sort. But I just think that, you know, this may be the first generation, I would say, with the millennials, where I think it is absolutely normal for, you know, mental health advocacy and therapy and things like that to occur. Like, you know, you start thinking about your parents or grandparents' generation. If you went to see a therapist, you know, you were crazy, you were talked about, you know, God was the only therapist you needed, you know, you couldn't seek that. It was more, you know, to it. And so I think now it's becoming the norm. It's like, hey man, what are you doing? Oh man, it's that therapy. You know, it's not.
Right.
No, it's you talk about it. It's like having a therapist is just like having a chiropractor, like having a doctor. They're integral pieces of your life. They help you be, you know, continue to be who you are. So that's just, you know, really in a nutshell, I think why a lot of men like struggle with that is just it's just the thought of, if I need help, I'm weak. And no man likes to be seen as weak, right? We want to be Superman. It's why we don't want to go to the doctor, because we'd rather know we're strong, we're mighty, because we in the back of our mind, we don't want to, that little dark corner, it's fear, right? It's like, man, I'm not going to be seen as who I think I should be seen as, which is strong all the time, always the hero of the day and things of that sort. And that's a lot of that's rooted in ego and pride.
It definitely is. And I think it's such a limiting experience.
Yes, very much.
To only live that way when you don't believe you have any other option.
Agreed.
And I worked with men in therapy before, and I remember this one client in particular, he just kept saying, like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't even know why I'm here.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, once you leave here, just sit with how you feel after talking.
Yes.
You don't have to, we don't have to structure it so much to where you feel like you got to talk about everything. How do you simply feel once you leave this room? Do you feel a little bit lighter?
Yeah.
That is what this is supposed to be for you.
Yeah. Nothing more, nothing less.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
I'm curious for you, how did you move out of that ideology of I have to be strong, or have you, of I got to do this on my own, versus no, I get to be vulnerable, I get to have help, I get to be imperfect, and it doesn't impact my masculinity or manhood?
You know what? I believe life somehow will put you in some situations where you just succumb to it, right? And so I would say it came when with my battle with cancer 7 years ago. You know, anyone that knows me in the Houston fitness community, they've seen the videos, they've seen the heavy deadlifts and this, and I was this coach, and I was working out 2 times a day and healthy, and when my doctors were like, you got stage 2 cancer, I'm like, what? And so I'm like, And I was willing to like do this alone. I'll go to chemo and radiation. I don't need nobody. And they were like, that's not how this is going to work. Because I was going to take myself to surgery and drive. They're like, you cannot drive yourself in surgery. I was like, ooh. And so I got forced
Okay.
to be vulnerable, right?
Forced vulnerability.
It was forced. I had to break down and tell my closest of friends that I'm like, hey, I'm about to start chemo and radiation, and I need you guys to take me to MD Anderson. I need you to cook meals for me. I need you to even clean the gym because you have low immunity and stuff like that. I need my coaches to take over and stuff like that. And so it just forced me to like say I've got to open up because I mean all of a sudden 3 weeks ago, I actually my oncologist, funny one, he was trying to schedule chemo and port implantation, and he was like, "Hey, so we can get this done next week and we get started." I was like, "I can't do that next week." He's like, "Why not?" I was like, "I've got a CrossFit competition in Austin." He was like, "What?" He was like, "You're gonna go do a CrossFit competition and you're being diagnosed?" I was like, "Yeah." And so he was like, "The fact that you can even do that, you're actually in pretty good shape to like beat this." And I was like, "That's all I need is hope." And so, but I think with that entire stint with going through chemo and radiation, as I had to tell people, I had to, be like, I can't do this alone. I had to, people had to go with me to doctor's appointments because I couldn't, get out on my own volition and stuff like that.
Right.
So, but that really kicked off the entire path to, seeking out a therapist because just there's, chemo and radiation is a traumatic experience. Everyone loves to think that it's all about ribbons and ringing bells, but I promise you, it's a very tough process and it leaves you thinking about, your value. How do you, go on functioning, life as a survivor and stuff like that. And so it just really cancer took me into this world to where I am. Like I'm in one instance, I never wish cancer on anyone, but the impact it's made on my life has been more positives than negatives.
Well, thank you for sharing.
I was going to say, thank you for sharing
Thank you
it.
for sharing.
I have a question. So, as a fitness professional,
Yes.
what do you say to people who think that the gym is therapy versus a therapeutic practice?
I'm going to say it's a therapeutic practice, right? Like, look, those weights and those dumbbells cannot help you resolve why the issues in your childhood has led to your anger problems that you have in your relationships and things like that. However, it is a space where it does allow you to compartmentalize, right? Because when you walk in there, you are focusing on the lifting, you are focusing on things. So it builds a type of awareness in the mind of, hey, I am now developing a type of discipline inadvertently to focus on one thing. And I think in that process, you begin to learn, well, hey, maybe I can process some things while in the gym, or if I can shut everything off and go do what I need to do in the gym, then maybe I can pull what I need from my mind and stuff like that. So to any of the fellas that are like, oh, the gym is my therapy, I say no, that's probably not the best thing for you. Is it therapeutic? Absolutely. You get the endorphins. When you start to see the results, and we know that certain with anxiety and depression that can be associated with weight gain and things like that. So as you are living a healthier lifestyle, it may start to help some of those things, but they may not necessarily be the root of it. So as much as you're in the gym hanging out, you still need to go see. That's why God created you all. You all are healers, right? And so and you need to go find the people that can help you become the best version of yourself. And the best version isn't always what you see in the mirror. It's also what's between your ears.
That's a good point. And we did not pay him to say that.
Nope.
We did not pay him to say that.
We put that cash out right there.
I think you share a lot of things that I think that will help men be better in all aspects of their relationships. Being open, being vulnerable,
Yes.
going to therapy, and just leaning into that vulnerability. I think that'll help them just take the armor off,
Yeah.
and then they would trust the space, and then they could just be more loving in their relationships or in their ideologies. I think they're tired. I think men are tired.
I
Absolutely.
think so too.
I think it's
Absolutely.
showing.
Fatigue is
I'm like,
real.
I think you're
Yes.
tired,
Yes,
and I
very
think
much.
I want men to know, like, bro, it's okay to go talk to somebody.
Exactly.
It really is. It
Yes.
really is.
Yeah.
What are some of your self-care practices? That's the last question. of
Oh
this
gosh,
pod.
self-care. Definitely. Preacher's kid. I'm always going to be in church.
Okay.
I don't care what anyone says. God is the ultimate healer. While at the
sure.
exact same time, everyone is always expecting an angel of the Lord and a pillar of fire to come down and fix everything. And I'm like, no, that's old school. That ain't happening in a modern time. But I do believe he's created people on this planet that you don't need a miracle as much as you may need
That's a
it's
bar.
not you don't necessarily need a miracle,
Clip that
like
up.
you know.
You heard us, Lloyd.
But also with that, with your spirituality, there is a component of the physical, getting to the gym, but realizing that too much of the gym actually creates a stress in the body, right?
Yeah.
Which can work against you. So balancing that, routine therapy, I think when I first started therapy, I went once a week for an entire year straight. I went 52 straight sessions, but now it's a little bit more of a, 4 to 6 weeks. But just checking in. But then also, I found the older I've gotten, it's just connecting deeper with my friends around me, right?
Okay.
Like actually talking with them what's going on in my life, not just, oh man, I'm straight, man, let's go kick it. Like really like when you ask how I'm doing, and I'm not even gonna wait. Sometimes I'm just gonna go off on a tangent, but I may just bring up the subject because it may not always be a time where it's like, how are you? It may be like, man, look, man, I'm finna make the nightly news, man. If they say if I gotta send this email one more time to my job explaining why I'm, and those things like that. So I think just the more I began to share with the people I trusted close to me, the deeper those trust and that bond like grew. But the more I just felt like a lot of that weight lifted off your shoulders, because it's like, even though we carry our own cross, it's like, hey, can you at least just help me lift this thing up the hill one time? I carry it the rest of the way. And I think that, we have to learn to be our brothers and sisters keepers. And so I think men have to stop having surface level relationships with one another.
Boom.
It can't be
Yes.
just because
Yes.
you like
I was trying to
you
figure
like
out
the
what you said.
Rockets, or you like the whatever the young boy artist Dirk and none of those guys that you're out and
Young
stuff. I
boy
don't know what
artists.
those guys listen to, but that's what I guess. But it can't be just, oh, let's just jump on the PlayStation and game for hours and hours and hours, when you could have had so many conversations while playing that PlayStation right next, man. So
Right.
how's things in your marriage, man? How's fatherhood treating you? How's your job and stuff like that? How is your health, man? Have you been to the doctor lately? Like those
Okay.
little tiny things. I think men should just, stop worrying about how other men are going to question you and your sexuality because you are deciding to be vulnerable and open, right?
That's a
Because at
great
the end of the day, when it's you struggling, you're in that dark place, they're not going to be there to be that light to help you see your way out. They're going to be on the outside not giving a damn. So I think it's just, if you can turn your blinders on and shut out the world and just focus on the people that really care, that really are for you, I think you can grow a little deeper, and you can have a little more stability.
Okay.
Amen to that.
I feel like you didn't mention one, because
Huh?
I follow you on Instagram, because I saw you cook a lot, and I saw you make some oysters the other day.
And more
Try So you being shy.
Nah, I do a little something. I don't use no hamburger helper or nothing. I can survive.
I said every time is he got a new meal? It's in the
I
Chef
love cooking.
Boyardee.
But also finding those therapeutic, like me, cooking to some people, it brings their anxiety up. They're just like, oh my God, I feel like I gotta be chef. Me, I love like cooking so much. Like I
can
sit around
tell.
and think about like, okay, this is what I'm gonna season it with. This is the color I want. Like seriously, like it's a whole vibe. When I'm in the kitchen, I got a
that for
Sade
you.
and a glass of wine.
I know
mean,
that's
I'm
right.
being vibing
I know
out.
that's
I can't.
right.
I actually love the cooking process more than I love eating what I cook, because I just love to take. Man, I took these raw ingredients and I reached into my mind and brought to reality what it is that I wanted. I bought the flavors I wanted, the textures that I wanted, even just the entire meal I wanted.
For sure.
And so I definitely finding something therapeutic that, and I'm a golfer as well.
Okay.
Golf and cooking is really my thing. So just finding something beyond just, hanging out in front of the TV, scrolling on the gram, double tapping models all day and stuff like that. You got to go do stuff. Look, man,
Y'all heard me.
now every time Megan Thee Stallion posts something, you the first person that liked the photo with the double, heart, eye emojis and stuff. Now come on, now you got to do something else. So I think just and start just exploring.
Yeah.
Start exploring different things that may just you didn't know you had a liking for, whether it's go out and do something theatric, go try a different type of cuisine you've never been, or just say, you know what, forget this, man. I'm just gonna get on a jet and fly somewhere other than Dominican Republic, right?
What's wrong with the DR?
Go to the DR. Like
I've
I'm
never
actually gonna
been.
go somewhere and get some culture. So those are some things I do.
Love
Okay.
it.
Well, thank you
Love
for
it.
sharing. You guys have any more questions for our guests?
No, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for coming on and having
Thank
this
you.
conversation
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
this was
It's a pleasure.
the title of this session is called A Much Needed Conversation. We appreciate you for tuning in. With that being said, go love yourself.
Go love yourself.
Go love yourself.